Imagine a poison so beautiful, you actually want to touch it. It doesn't burn your skin. It doesn't make you choke. It flows like heavy, silver water, mesmerizing, reflective, and completely unlike anything else on Earth. But beneath this captivating surface hides a silent thief. Once it slips inside your body, it doesn't stop your heart. It doesn't collapse your lungs. Instead, it crawls, slowly and quietly, up into your brain. You won't even know it's there. Months might pass in total silence. But then, the trembling begins. A crushing paranoia sets in. The shadows in the corner of your room start to whisper. Your memories slip away, and the person you used to be simply dissolves into madness. What if I told you this isn't a cursed potion from a dark fairy tale? It is a real, naturally occurring element. One that has driven emperors insane, wiped out entire fishing villages, and for centuries hid right in plain sight. Welcome to the beautiful, terrifying world of the liquid metal. Over 2,000 years ago, the most powerful man on Earth conquered everything in his path. Huang, the first emperor of China, had absolute control over millions of lives. But there was one enemy he was absolutely terrified of: death. Desperate to rule forever, he ordered his wisest alchemists to create an elixir of immortality. They returned with a mesmerizing, heavy silver liquid. They promised him it possessed magical, life-giving properties. He drank the glowing silver drops, believing he was becoming a god. But soon, the emperor began to change. His brilliant tactical mind fractured. He descended into a dark, suffocating paranoia. He believed invisible assassins were waiting in the shadows. He executed his closest advisors. The very potion he drank to live forever was quietly dissolving his brain from the inside out. He died at just 49 years old, insane and terrified. Legend says he was buried in a massive, secret tomb surrounded by actual, flowing rivers of liquid mercury. The element gave him eternal life in the history books, but it gave him a tortured, maddening death in reality. But mercury doesn't just hunt ancient kings. Sometimes, it swallows entire communities. Fast forward to the 1950s, in a quiet, misty fishing village in Japan called Minamata. Life there was peaceful until a strange and terrifying phenomenon began. It started with the cats. The village felines would suddenly freeze. Their eyes would go wide, and they would begin to twitch violently. They would leap into the air in a bizarre, erratic frenzy, shrieking before collapsing or throwing themselves into the ocean. The locals were horrified. They whispered about a curse, calling it the disease of the dancing cats. But the nightmare had just begun. Months later, the curse moved to the humans. Fishermen started stumbling as if they were drunk. Neighbors suddenly couldn't speak, their words turning into meaningless slurs. People's hands twisted into agonizing, unnatural shapes. They lost their hearing, their vision, and eventually, their minds. The village wasn't cursed by a demon. It was cursed by a corporation. A massive nearby chemical factory had been quietly dumping tons of mercury directly into the bay. The toxic metal sank into the water, infected the fish, poisoned the cats, and finally, destroyed the people. The mercury didn't just kill the villagers. It locked them inside their own failing, uncontrollable bodies. You might think that today, with modern science and strict rules, we are safe. We know how to handle this beautiful poison. But the most terrifying truth about mercury is how little it takes to end a life. In August 1996, Karen Wetterhahn, a brilliant chemistry professor, was working in her laboratory. She was studying a highly concentrated, specialized form of the element called dimethylmercury. Karen was no amateur. She wore her safety goggles, a protective coat, and heavy latex gloves. She was completely protected, or so she thought. As she carefully transferred the liquid, her hand slipped. Just 2 tiny drops fell. They landed right on the back of her gloved hand. Karen didn't panic. She followed every safety protocol. She finished her work, cleaned her station, and took off her gloves. There were no burns, no pain, no warning signs. She had no idea that dimethylmercury can slice through latex and human skin in less than 15 seconds. For 5 months, Karen lived her life normally. But the poison was already inside her, slowly crossing into her brain, quietly hunting her neurons. Then she started bumping into doors. Her speech began to slow down. Her fingers trembled. Within weeks, she couldn't walk, she couldn't speak, and eventually, she couldn't even see. The 2 tiny drops had completely dismantled her brain. Despite agonizing medical treatments, Karen slipped into a coma and died. The metal had silently stolen her mind, her senses, and her life, all from a spill so small, it could fit on the head of a pin. The story of Karen Wetterhahn proves how unforgiving this element is today. But humanity's dark obsession with this silver liquid didn't start in a modern chemistry lab. It began thousands of years ago, in the deep shadows of the ancient world. We don't know the exact name of the first human who discovered it, because it has been haunting us since the dawn of civilization. Vials of pure mercury have been found buried deep inside Egyptian tombs dating back to 1500 BC, resting quietly beside the mummies of pharaohs. But perhaps the most chilling discovery was made deep beneath the ancient pyramids of Teotihuacan in Mexico. Recently, archaeologists broke through a sealed, secret tunnel leading directly under the massive temple of the feathered serpent. At the end of the dark passage, they didn't find gold. They found miniature underground landscapes, complete with shimmering, glowing rivers of liquid mercury. To the ancients, this wasn't just a chemical. It was a mirror to the afterlife, a magical, glowing gateway to the underworld. For centuries, the greatest minds in history were completely hypnotized by it. Medieval alchemists believed mercury was the first matter, the divine blood of the earth. They spent their entire lives running dangerous experiments, convinced that if they could just find the right secret formula, this heavy silver liquid would transform into solid gold. Instead of finding gold, humanity found bizarre new ways to poison itself. In ancient Rome, women rubbed mercury onto their faces as a cosmetic, slowly absorbing the dark toxin just to achieve a ghostly, pale complexion. Hundreds of years later, doctors actually prescribed it as a miracle medicine. If you had an infection or a disease like syphilis, doctors would force you to swallow heavy doses of the liquid metal. They had a famous saying, "A night with Venus, a lifetime with Mercury." The so-called cure caused patients to violently drool, their teeth to fall out, and their minds to completely shatter. But as terrifying as its history is, mercury is also scientifically bizarre. It completely defies the rules of nature. It is the only metal on the periodic table that is liquid at room temperature. It looks like water, but it is unbelievably heavy. In fact, it is so incredibly dense that if you dropped a solid, 15-pound iron cannonball into a pool of mercury, it wouldn't sink to the bottom. It would float on the surface like a cheap plastic toy. And it has a strange, almost predatory hunger for other precious metals. If you place a solid gold ring into a glass of mercury, the silver liquid will literally eat the gold, dissolving it completely into itself like sugar in hot tea. For thousands of years, humans have worshipped it, worn it, and swallowed it. They were mesmerized by its beauty, entirely unaware of the dark, invisible trap they were walking into. Because of its mesmerizing beauty and its terrifying ability to destroy the human brain, this element has earned a chilling identity. In the dark corners of history, it is known as the metal of madness. And it earned this title because of the incredibly cruel way it operates. Most poisons are loud and violent. They attack your lungs, your liver, or your heart. But mercury is a silent thief. It doesn't just kill your body, it fundamentally erases the person you are. We actually have a famous phrase for this, one you have probably used before without knowing its dark origin. In the 1800s, gentlemen loved to wear tall, elegant top hats. To make these hats, craftsmen used hot mercury to treat the animal fur. Every single day, in poorly ventilated workshops, these hat makers breathed in invisible, toxic silver steam. Slowly, the poison took hold. The workers developed extreme, terrifying paranoia. Their hands shook so violently they couldn't hold a glass of water. They suffered from sudden, violent mood swings and horrific hallucinations. They lost their minds completely. This dark chapter of history gave birth to the famous phrase, "mad as a hatter." It wasn't a quirky concept from a children's fairy tale. It was the grim reality of severe mercury poisoning. But why does it do this? Your brain is protected by a microscopic biological fortress called the blood-brain barrier. It is a strict security system designed to keep dangerous chemicals out of your mind. But Mercury is a master of disguise. Once inside your body, it actually alters its chemical shape, tricking your biological guards into thinking it is a necessary nutrient. It is escorted right through the gates. Once it settles inside your brain, the disguise comes off. It acts like a pair of invisible, microscopic scissors, slowly and quietly cutting the delicate wires that connect your nerves. It destroys your memories, scrambles your emotions, and short-circuits your senses. The metal of madness doesn't just take your life. It traps you inside a dark, failing mind, leaving you as a stranger to the people who love you and eventually a stranger to yourself. Mercury is a profound warning disguised as a marvel. It is a reminder that the universe does not care about what we find beautiful. Nature has no obligation to be safe. We look at a heavy, flowing pool of liquid silver, and our human instinct screams at us to touch it, to study it, to hold it in our hands. From ancient emperors desperately chasing eternal life to brilliant modern scientists pushing the boundaries of human knowledge, we have been endlessly fascinated by the metal of madness. And for thousands of years, that fascination has come with a devastating price. Today, we no longer drink it to live forever. We no longer rub it on our faces or use it to make hats. We have locked the silver liquid away behind thick glass, strict warning labels, and heavy laboratory doors. But the mystery remains. Because deep underground, locked inside the rock and soil of our planet, the rivers of silver are still there, quiet, beautiful, and waiting. If you are fascinated by the dark, hidden stories of the elements that secretly shape our world, and sometimes destroy it, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Join us as we continue to unlock the strange, dangerous, and beautiful mysteries of the universe. The periodic table is full of secrets, and some of them are deadly. Click the video on your screen to explore another element that changed history, and I will see you in the next investigation.